lawyers what they said on Tuesday, that you should not be prosecuted or could not be prosecuted if you ordered SEAL Team 6 to kill a political opponent?
Well, you're talking about a totally different case, the immunity. I say this, on immunity, very simple. If a president of the United States does not have immunity, he'll be totally ineffective because he won't be able to do anything, because it will mean he'll be prosecuted, strongly prosecuted perhaps, as soon as he leaves office by the opposing party.
Remember when Donald Trump said that? That was a press conference he held after the New York Attorney General civil fraud case. He was there with Alina Haba, and Donald Trump was asked about the oral arguments before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and he was asked, your lawyers argued that you could order SEAL Team 6 to kill your political opponent, and you believe that you should have absolute presidential immunity for that. And you heard Donald Trump say, yeah, of course I should have absolute presidential immunity for that. That's his view. An authoritarian dictatorship where people who hold that title of the office of the presidency at any given time can do anything that they want. Fortunately, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled against Donald Trump in a very thorough 57-page order. They gave Donald Trump until February 12th to try to file an appeal before the Supreme Court before their mandate issues and trial proceedings start again, or the pretrial proceedings rather, and all of the other court proceedings will take place before the district court and Judge Tanya Chutkan. That's been stayed since early to mid-December at this point. So Trump is now whining about this order by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. By the way, it was a 3-judge panel made up of Judge Pan, Childs, and Henderson. Henderson appointed by Republican administrations, the other judges appointed by Democratic administrations, but it was a per curiam decision. All of the judges agreed, and they were very thorough. And you know, it turns out why it took a little longer than we expected, about 2 weeks longer, was because they were thorough. They were dotting their I's and crossing their T's. There was really nothing else to it other than they wanted to make this thing powerful and appeal proof. They understood the historical moment and what they were doing, and they wanted to get it right, and their ruling is as strong as it gets, and they've given Donald Trump a very short time if he wants to go to the Supreme Court. Now, here was Donald Trump's post. Donald Trump wrote, "A president of the United States must have full immunity in order to properly function and do what has to be done for the good of our country. A nation-destroying ruling like this cannot be allowed to stand. If not overturned as it should be, this decision would terribly injure not only the presidency, but the life, breath, and success of our country. A president will be afraid to act for fear of the opposite party's vicious retribution after leaving office. I know from personal experience, because I am going through it right now, it will become a political weapon used for election interference. Even our elections will be corrupted and under siege. So bad and so dangerous for our nation." And then he puts in all caps, like the maniac he is, "Save presidential immunity." Well, what the DC Circuit said is that there's nothing to save or not save because we live in a rule of law country where law and order matters. And the concept of absolute presidential immunity to give maniacs like you the ability to order SEAL Team 6 to kill political opponents, or as you like to say, to behave like a rogue cop or a pedophile priest. Yeah, there is no such thing as absolute immunity for those concepts ever or now. We live in a country that is a law and order, rule of law country. And that's what the DC Circuit Court of Appeals said in their ruling when they said, we cannot accept former President Trump's claim that a president has unbounded authority to commit crimes that would neutralize the most fundamental check on executive power, the recognition and implementation of election results. Nor can we sanction his apparent contention that the executive has carte blanche to violate the rights of individual citizens to vote and have their votes counted. They talk about in this order how Trump's alleged efforts to remain in power despite losing the 2020 election were, if proven, an unprecedented assault on the structure of our government. He allegedly injected himself into a process in which the president has no role, the counting and certifying of the Electoral College votes, thereby undermining constitutionally established procedures and the will of Congress. Powerful words by the unanimous panel from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals right there. And you know who never had to worry about the concept of absolute presidential immunity before? You know who never had to panic? Everyone else other than Donald Trump, because every other president didn't lead insurrections against our country. And I refuse to be gaslit by the traitorous direction the Republican Party has gone in as MAGA has taken over that party. They're now the MAGA party, or the Magadonians as they like to call themselves. We do not live in an authoritarian nation like these Magadonians want to make us. We live in a democracy where the rule of law matters, and I refuse to be gaslit into somehow believing that what happened on January 6th and Donald Trump's attempts to overthrow the free and fair election is somehow normal and just something that political parties do. It is not. It is viciously criminal. It is an affront to our Constitution. The conduct is traitorous and treasonous, and we all know what went down, and everybody who aids and abets it is complicit. It is that simple, folks. And Donald Trump wants to go around and talk about how I'm just like a rogue cop or a pedo priest. Here, play this clip of Donald Trump from a recent speech that he gave, where he says that. He compares himself to rogue cops and bad priests. Play the clip.
But it's a little bit like the police. So you have a rogue cop. You know what a rogue cop is? Very seldom. But you have bad people. You have people, no matter where, no matter what. In the church, you have some people that aren't so good, right? But you have people, a rogue cop or a bad apple, whatever. And what they do is they make it so that you catch, so that it can't happen. And therefore, everyone else is allowed to commit crimes, murders, like at levels that we've never seen before. No, we're going to have to do this. Immunity for the president. If you have a president that doesn't have immunity, he's never going to be free to do anything, because the opposing party will always indict him as soon as he leaves the White House. And you can't let that happen. You can't. You take away all of the power of the presidency, it'll be a different country. So hope.
And by the way, here's what Alina Haba had to say. Play this clip.
The Supreme Court is looking at presidential immunity, which means it's a protection for presidents so that they can actually operate without being afraid of being prosecuted, persecuted, and attacked when they come out of office. But what has happened? He's been prosecuted, persecuted, and attacked, and they're ignoring presidential immunity. So finally, the Supreme Court is taking it up on January 6th case and going to look at it really hard and say, look, we have no business attacking somebody who was within his scope of presidency, who has come in, was doing his job, was protecting the elections, was doing the things that a president should do. Instead, they call him an insurrectionist because they can't beat him in the polls.
You know who I think has perhaps a better perspective on this than Alina Haba, the lawyer who's been sanctioned nearly $1 million for filing frivolous lawsuits, who didn't know how to introduce exhibits in a trial, whose defense at the defamation case against Donald Trump by E. Jean Carroll was that when Donald Trump defamed E. Jean Carroll, his rape victim, he gave her what she always wanted, the fame that she always wanted. How vile. How disgusting. And compare that, though, however, to a real constitutional law scholar, Jamie Raskin, Democratic Congress member. And here's his perspective on this. Play this clip.
To deal with what are very easy legal questions. I mean, when Donald Trump says he has immunity for whatever he does as a former president, you mean he can actually go out and shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and he can't be prosecuted? He can rape people, as we know he might have some predilection to do, and he can't be prosecuted because he's immunized against everything, conspiracy to overthrow the government, steal documents and so on. I mean, it's absurd. The other argument, of course, is double jeopardy, which is even more laughable. The idea that because you go through impeachment and a Senate trial, it would be double jeopardy to try you for things that might, interact with or overlap with charges that were brought before. The Constitution itself, in Article 1, Section 7, Clause 3, I think it is, specifically refutes that. It says that if you're being impeached, that extends only to removal from office and disqualification from office, but prosecution and trial at law will lie nonetheless later on. So it's an explicit refutation of that argument. I mean, that is a one-paragraph dismissal of that absurd argument.
Very few people can cite specific clauses of the Constitution. I think it's important for me to remind viewers. Now,
well, there you have it, folks. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to not just 2, but 3 million subscribers thanks to your support. Make sure you sign up for our newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter. That's free to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.